Welcome to Grid Tactical Tuesday, our call where every week we talk about how to build your cash machine in the investing game. We happen to believe being an agent is one of the best cash machines you can possibly have. And today I am very excited to be joined by Eddy Perez, founder of Equity Prime Mortgage, one of the top 5 wholesale lenders in the country. And this grew out of a conversation we had. We were talking about the market here in Knoxville. We started just talking about our histories of the last 20 years. And I said, hey, Eddy, would you want to have this conversation? It's a conversation we get to have. I don't think the public has as much about how the market actually works. What are the factors we've seen? What are the big macro things we're actually looking at? Not whatever's in the headlines this month, the things you see when you've been doing it for years and you live through a couple different cycles. And so really excited. Eddy was really excited to do this as well. Eddy, brother, give me, if you can for a second, can you be a little immodest and give us a little background about yourself, just to frame it in context, because I like people to understand when we're hearing from somebody kind of what their level of expertise is.
All right, I'll give the Reader's Digest quick. First generation born in this country from Cuban immigrant parents, grew up in the inner city of Atlanta, went to college, graduated in finance, got in the mortgage business in 2002. I've seen the whole evolution. I started in a call center, so I learned how to. I thought my phone sales skills needed to increase, and that definitely made it better. And then I went to, as we call, street LO, where I did business with realtors and builders. And as much as sometimes I will say this, that you guys get a bad rap, do business with builders. You guys are saints compared to them. That's a whole different animal. And I'm sure some of you guys have dealt with it. So I will leave it at that. And I grew up in construction because my dad had a contracting company. So I already knew what I was getting into. Yeah, started my business with $1,000 and have built it up over the last 21 years. Nothing crazy. I guess since I don't have crazy amount of hobbies, and I've always just kind of been a dad and built. Finally, even though I had the title, I didn't really become a CEO till the last couple years. I actually really learned what the hell that's like. And, that's it. Just built it the old fashioned way, blood, sweat, and tears. I didn't have wealthy parents. I didn't have PE money. I didn't have any sugar daddies or sugar mamas that came in. And I do consider myself and Rob knows me, I consider myself a pretty regular guy. I don't think I'm special or better than anybody. I just don't buy into that philosophy in life.
Yeah, I would agree. I meet people at the highest level, and they're regular people that have the biggest achievement I've ever seen is somebody who manages to stay themselves as they go through these phases, right? Doesn't let the thing change them. What does that look like? Because I want to talk about this on a macro level. One of the things that's been so helpful for us is I started in 2019, I got a job as director of operations, and KW had an expansion organization. And so I went and took the expansion training, and then sitting in the expansion training, I was like, oh, wow, here are people that are doing hundreds and sometimes thousands of units every single year. What would happen if I got in those rooms? And then you start getting access to tens of thousands of transactions and what are best practices, and really kind of expanding your thinking. With EPM right now, how many deals do you guys see every month?
How many deals we see? We close around 1,500 a month. Deals we see, because you know how things flow and change and timing.
Sure.
So I'd say over 2,000 a month.
Yeah. So 24,000 transactions, maybe you're looking at or around or involved. That's why I wanted to have this conversation of, so when we're talking about the market and there's a lot of flow in the market, you may have a guy in your market. He may be pretty savvy. He may be looking, if he's crushing it, at like 200 deals this year. And that'd be a great LO to have a conversation.
Oh God.
I have one of those.
That's a phenomenal, not even great.
He's
That's
a beast.
phenomenal.
And it's still like there's other macro levels of what's happening, because here's what happens, and I'll share this, is there are markets that we watch, and we've seen this before. Eddy and I were talking about this, that are kind of the bellwethers: Florida, California, Arizona, Vegas. And sometimes this stuff that we see will roll across the country. So I thought we'd have kind of a high level kind of conversation about some of the things we've seen. So I'll start with this, Eddy. Like, how do you feel about the market in general right now?
I'm always somebody who believes opportunity is great if you know what you're looking for, and try to remove the emotions and look at data. I think this is a tough market. However, it's kind of been that way for 4 years now. So I think at this point, why do we keep talking about it? I do believe this is the ultimate time to really enhance your process and systems. and really get to understand the data. And to your point, where the opportunity is, it's kind of like how we were brought into conversation together from Leo. All of a sudden, I've got a daughter, that one over there, however, point it that way, that is going to University of Tennessee and wants to live in the fort. So that's what brought us. I think and I know AI is overused. However, I think people that use it as a learning development tool are going to become better marketers, give themselves less wasted time. And I think they're going to eat up. I think the A and B players just absolutely destroy the C and D players. And that's what I see is why I say it's a great opportunity. The good thing is it doesn't matter if you're C and D now. If you really learn AI and how to manage your time so you actually use productive measures that gain revenue, I think you can kill it. Because I think for too long, and I always say it from my industry standpoint, my industry got too lazy, I think, from 2003 to 2022 because of quantitative easing and interest rates that were artificially low. I always compare it to the baseball steroid era when, anybody can produce and hit home runs in that area. I think anybody could have produced. So, but I still believe it's an incredible market. Demographics are great out there. You still have a lot of first-time home buyers, Gen Y and Gen Z. Now, there is a cliff that falls off because I study university admissions and birth rates. So I think we will see a fall off because right now we're in a weird baby boom. And I only know that because my daughter, when she went to college, was like the biggest birth ever in a 1 year span in this country's history. Not a generation, but 1 year. And you will start seeing a fall off. And coincidentally, the fall off started at 08. We all know what happened in 08. So it's not a economic times do change birth rates that later affect our market. I mean, big time. Our market, what we do and you do, because we're all in real estate together. I'm just in real estate finance side. It's all about demographics and supply and demand. It's very basic. It's not that complicated.
So there's a couple of things you said. I love this. One, we talk about an investing thesis. Do you have an investing thesis? And the most basic investing thesis I've taken from Rob is how do I put myself in the path of growth? And I think when we're talking about supply and demand and housing on a macro level, it is that, right? It is available inventory, number of potential homeowners, right? Where is the growth going, right? How do I put myself in the path of growth? And there's some kind of very predictable macro things. On a micro level, it gets super confusing because it's like, why is this neighborhood moving and this one isn't? And, days on market and like lots of things happen in our market. It could be very different than the market in Florida at the same time. A couple of things you said I think are interesting. One, can you just, for somebody who hasn't been around, I talked to so many agents that have started in the last 7 years. They started, what's quantitative easing? Like, how did that change things? Like on a very simple
it's through history. I'll make it simple. Interest rates never went below 5% naturally. The government went and bought mortgage bonds because they could set the price. That's why it went down to 2%. Unfortunately, a lot of the inflation, and you guys saw it in 21, that exploded on houses, is because what nobody wants to admit is we're a payment cash flow society. Everybody wants to talk about rate, but it's really about payment and cash flow, and if you can meet your needs. So it was artificially kept low by the Federal Reserve, and essentially we all became de facto dependent addicts, I'd almost put, on the Federal Reserve. And then you went cold turkey, and that's why you've seen what you've seen. And some people believe it's coming back, and you got the new Fed chair. It's not coming back. Debt levels are too high. Inflation, as we know, it can't. It's printing money. So kiss that goodbye. I'm not saying there won't be opportunities when rates drop, because I believe you'll see if we ever get done with Iran or whatever, the oil comes down, but it's not going to be anything crazy. But that was quantitative easing, the government intervention.
Thank you. That's so we had quantitative easing, that has gone away. And I think The Psychology of Money is one of the best books I've seen on this, which is just like whatever you lived through is how you perceive the market. If you lived through 70s and stagflation and
80s, early 80s.
Yeah, you have these ideas about how junk bonds work and all these other things. And if you live through a couple crashes, you have these ideas about how markets are cyclical in the real estate market. And it really kind of warps our perception. The other thing that happened in 08 that's kind of interesting, right? Eddy is speaking of builders, new construction fell off a cliff. And so we still have this shortage of new
Yep.
construction houses where we still haven't caught up to just building like for replacement costs. So you have like big picture, you have still some, demographics tailwinds, and you also have like a housing shortage nationally. There's
Mhm.
tailwinds there as well.
And just to give us some perspective to highlight your point, Justin, because you brought a great point. We built, it was within 500,000, the same amount of houses in 20, I guess you could say 2010 to the last day of 2019 that we did during the Great Depression. Yet we're 3 times the size of a society, just to put people in perspective of how we got here. And that's why I've also said with defaults rising, and of course, the bureaucrats will never believe me on this one. I actually think foreclosures and some of that inventory will actually help affordability and help bring more to the market. Trying to stemmy and stop it, I don't think is a wise move because there's plenty of buyers out there. So, why is that? You said, Lauren, well, why is what?
Lauren, go unmute. Let's
Yeah,
expand on.
why did we build such little amount of inventory in the 2010s? Just
Oh, simple. There wasn't any capital. They believed. It's funny what led to the financial crash. It had more to do with Wall Street. And I'm actually putting out an expose book about that. So I'll save that part of it. It's pretty interesting. They blamed mortgage brokers, they blamed mortgage lenders, they blamed real estate agents, they blamed builders, but they don't blame where all the capital came from, which was Wall Street, because Wall Street controls the capital and then they ran their own narrative. Period. End of story. So Wall Street was a casino. Absolutely. So builders just could not get financing. They're still not getting a lot of it. However, interesting news last week, Blackstone said that they're going to now finance builders. It's probably a wise move and it's probably needed. But yeah, the traditional banks and all that, Lauren, just stepped out of it. They had too much scrutiny, regulatory, and smaller to mid-sized builders just got completely wiped out. Completely. Just decimated is probably the best way I could put it.
So Eddie and I were talking about this, but for context, I was in Tampa, third hardest hit market in the country. 37% of the equity disappears overnight. 1 in 4 Americans are upside down on their mortgage.
Yeah.
Like that, right? That's '07. The wheels are coming off in '06, by the way. I'm working for a correspondent lender, just like a builder. You work under their license. Of 200 agents there, only 6 even have a license. We're losing states, we're losing programs. Fraud is everywhere and normalized, and right. By 2011, 90% of the market in Tampa is foreclosures. So there was a tailwind, and because there's so many foreclosures, you also, the other part of it, you couldn't compete with new inventory, even if you could get financing, because there was such a glut of fire sale inventory in some ways. It really was depressing the market for years. So it's an interesting space. Yep. And a lot of people got burned. And when they came back, they didn't build entry-level inventory. They built luxury inventory, and it took a while for
Well, something like cost to build a house just from fees from the local municipalities and all that, because there's a hustle there too. Like the average house today costs like $80,000, $90, 80 to 90,000 more in just fees. Fees. We're not talking about wood or costs. We're talking about just fees to the cities and the states. And that's why when I try to tell people this isn't just at the federal level, this is all the way down to the local municipalities and everything.
So where do you see, it's a great question Rob asked. And there's this one other before we get to that, Rob. I did have one other question. You talked about the demographics. The other thing I saw that was pretty interesting is a comparison between the purchasing power of the next wave of millennial homebuyers and then the equity of the boomers. If you look at states like Florida and some of these other states, there's a pretty big gap between the purchasing power and the equity. And so that, hey, eventually there's going to have to be a correction there of, if these people want to cash out at the casino, they may have to just give up some of the monopoly money, because there's only so much some of these buyers can afford. It's kind of an interesting.
Well, yeah, to your point, but there's $36 trillion in equity.
Yep. Yeah.
So where's the
equity position I've ever
opportunity to
seen in my
answer
life.
that? Where's the opportunity, Rob? Get a lot of the boomers to sell. Find the boomers that want to down. The problem the boomers have is some of them are unfortunately what I call either landlocked or loan locked. They sell their house, they're at a 2-something rate, 3-something rate. They're going to buy something more expensive and pay more, so they don't want to do that. I've seen that in neighborhood here in Atlanta. where they're like, what do I do? Yeah, my house is worth 3, 4 million now, but I'm going to go buy one for 1 million and pay more than I'm paying right now. So that's what I would call loan locked. And then you have landlocked where it's free and clear. I think what's really going to push it is when deaths start happening more than anything, unfortunately. And I don't mean that to be morbid. I'm not sure how many people will bite the bullet till it's forced. And let's be honest, the heirs are not going to keep the property unless they move into it. And if they do, because I've seen this time and time on the finance side, they're going to do cash out refis, maybe even if they do it wisely. This is another tip that I would give you guys is those that inherit it, maybe they take out a cash out to go buy an investment property, to go buy properties that'll generate them wealth. That may be a smart way to go about it, because that way you can accelerate the depreciation, nothing that you guys don't know, and then they get a write-off on their house. So yeah, there's definitely many different opportunities because there's so much equity. I mean, it's like bursting at the seams. And you bring up a good point. Part of the crash that happened in '08, which nobody studied, but I started seeing the stats in '06. My generation, Gen X, was tiny. So we were overbuilding in the wrong generation. Like we should have underbuilt, then the crash wouldn't have been as bad. And then we should have overbuilt in the millennial and like we did it at the wrong time.
And to the last point, just to give some context, if you hear any of these, market bears, housing crash bros, any of this stuff, look at inventory levels in '07, in '08. We had the highest levels of inventory we've ever seen, right? Combined with us going off of a cliff. So there was enough inventory to really go, I don't know, as opposed to now when what I see, tell me if you're wrong, Eddie, is what I see is we've got the best qualified buyers we've ever had. We've got the most equity we've ever had. We've got the delinquency rates, relatively speaking, because it's very difficult to get qualified for a mortgage comparatively than it used to be. So it's easing up.
Defaults are going up a lot more than they predicted, though. That's the only.
Yep.
But I think it's because the COVID relief was not very intelligent. I'm not knocking them and going backwards. I just think in '08, when you had to prove that you had a grievance, it's a lot different than as I saw, because I'm not in it anymore, but I did service a lot of my loans. We had people who went for forbearance just because they're like, nope, guy down the street's doing it. I don't give a shit. I'll just wrap it on the back. I don't care. True story. Can't even make this up. I did a 15-year, $500,000 loan on a property in California, cash out. He got 200,000 cash out, hadn't lost his job. And I was pissed off. Everybody was able to punt, so he wanted to punt. And it didn't hurt their credit. So I just think they rewarded. It's the old saying, you reward poor behavior, you get poor results. And I think, unfortunately, they let Pandora's box out. And now I think some of the defaults are a hustle. You see it in FHA redid 400,000 loans that now 100,000 are back in default second time around. Like, are they really in default? Are people really not affording it? Or are people just, I don't have to care. I don't give a shit. I'll put it on the back. Who cares? So, but yeah, for the most part, to answer it, I do think people are savvier. I also think from an investment standpoint, they're not as rate sensitive as they used to be. They understand it's about cash flow and write downs if they need to accelerate the depreciation. There's so many different ways. I think the consumer is a lot savvier today, which I think is a good thing. I think that's a great thing because those that are savvy can connect and it'll work out better.
Morgan had an interesting point in the comments. He said, I think you're also seeing some foreclosures showing up now that would have naturally happened 3 or 4 years ago.
Oh, yeah. The COVID relief ended. Some of the relief programs ended in 25. So I don't know when, but you start no different than you're seeing a lot of defaults in down payment assistance loans. And I know agents don't want to hear that, but I'm just telling you, those are probably going to start getting eaten up because it's exploding 12, 13% default rates. That's insanity.
Well, it's also to be the one thing I like to see is like, we work with our local food bank here, right? Appalachia is one of the poorest parts of the country, last place in the country to get electricity. We do a ton with Second Harvest here. Remote Area Medical does work in Haiti. They also run clinics right here in Appalachia and Knoxville for the surrounding areas. Like extreme poverty exists around here. And so work with the homeless as well. And when the economy turns, like the reason people are facing hunger and homelessness is directly related to the economy, the cost of food, cost of gas, inflation. Like this shows up in like real in real behavior, like housing.
And unfortunately, easy access to vices too. Unfortunately. Yeah.
Yeah, well, sure. We live in a fascinating, real interesting when you got unlimited sports gambling being pushed on your phone to 20-year-olds. Yeah. Like these things affect things. Morgan, yeah, jump on. Let's hear what you got to say. That's too long for me to read. You can say it.
Yeah, I did a lot of looking at FHA default rates before '06, before everything got distorted and weird. 13-14% default on FHA was pretty normalized.
You're
And
correct.
and you had that's when FHA did natively 100% financing. So it's weird for us to hear in the modern age because we had so long we've been doing these aggressive workouts and things like that. But it just turns out that that percentage of the FHA population, that's what they do. And just one thing I wanted to tell you, Eddie, before I hop off, I loved the American Gift. I thought it was the greatest down payment assistance program I've ever seen. I thought it was,
Default were bad.
I understand. I understand
Even
that it will go.
750 credit score. So don't even, it's not even, it didn't matter about credit score. It was the craziest shit I've ever seen. So,
Well, I'm sorry you got burned, brother, but I just want to let you know I appreciated it as an LO because I
yeah.
saw what a great.
Oh, it was great for the consumer because it was a grant. It wasn't even really DPA. We just called it that because trying to explain it
Yeah.
just. But here's what I'll tell you. You make a great point. You're absolutely accurate, Morgan, on the default rates before '06. There's only one challenge, though. All the bureaucracy that's still in DC that I've dealt with survived the crash. So now they view those numbers as Freddy Krueger's back. For the younger generation, don't know what I mean. Somebody will explain it to you. That's the problem. Even though it's the same, they view that as satanic numbers, and they're just, I mean, it's in full force. There's already rumors that False Claims Act is coming back and everything, because that's the problem. Regulation's needed to a degree. However, when you give that much autonomy and power to regulators, their answer to everything is fine, rip, do this and that. And it doesn't matter, man. Even though what you said is very logical, they don't care. They believe another crash is coming, or at least they're preventing, or what they believe they're preventing. No crash is coming because we already talked about demographics. These foreclosures will get eaten up. However, you're right, Morgan. Yet I always tell people you got to be worried about political risk. And political risk meaning if you give the autonomy to the regulators to grind an axe on you, they absolutely will.
One other thing quickly, I've been hearing that state regulators are actually the big boogeyman right now. That CFPB is largely taking a back seat, doesn't really have the
Yes.
resource to pursue anybody, and state regulators are aggressively filling in the gap.
There's like an alphabet army of people. I mean, it's just all over the place. I mean, because we're licensed in 50 states, it's 50 regulators. Yeah, regulation cost. And the sad reality about it is all it did was cost the consumer. I'm always a very huge consumer advocate because I laugh when people say we got to look out for the consumer. Of course you do. However, at what price? Like, I think the consumers are savvier today. I think some of the regs and some of this oversight could come down to save on cost. However, the problem is it's a Republican and Democrat. Democrats always want more regulation, and then Republicans don't want to relieve them because then they'll look like they're soft. So in other words, it just stays around. So it doesn't really matter for those that think it's a Republican or Democrat thing. It's a universal, it ain't coming back thing. No, Rob, I don't do commercial lending.
So what I think is interesting from living through all of those and watching this is on the regulatory side, I sat there and there was a program called an option arm. It was a negative amortization loan. So a negative amortization loan means, like you look at your amortization table that shows like what ratio of your payments are going to principal and interest. Negative amortization means you could pay less. You could load the interest up. It was a sophisticated product for like traders, people that get really big one-time bonuses. I'm talking, you're getting a 50, 70K bonus at the end of the year. So you've got some options. You could do interest only. And they opened it to the public. And I would watch a friend of mine and he would explain it. If you took the transcript, he explained every downside to that loan. And he was so good at tonality. It sounded like an entirely different loan. Like the products that were out there were really fascinating. And the more regulation I've seen, anybody else knows this, right? They've got to sign 20 pages of documents. They don't read the 20 pages of documents. They don't read any of the regulations. So I don't know what we do about that. For me, my opinion, no one's ever asked me. I was like, I'd love to have a one page that they actually read, but they don't even read the contract, like, the purchase and sale agreement. But I have seen
Yeah, good
more
luck.
regulation, just like from a very practical standpoint, as we've added more things, people read less because it's a little overwhelming for them, unfortunately.
And you have to remember something too about these regulators and politicians. They're all lawyers, all of them pretty much. Not all of them, 70-80%. You really think they're going to turn back on their industry and their people to water it down and take down jobs? And I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I'm also understanding where it's business advantageous for them.
Who's got some questions? We had kind of a macro conversation, right? About what's happening here. The
Absolutely,
biggest
you're a
thing I want.
conspiracy theorist.
Actually, I got a question for you, Eddie. If I'm watching the market, I follow Logan Motoshami a lot. I like him. Can we talk about what actually, if I want to know what's happening with rates or with the
Mhm.
economy, what's the information that you're watching? I feel like now there's so much niche information. There are so many micro influencers. There's so much noise out there. Not that it wasn't there before. I mean, CNBC and was totally misleading people in 2008. But like, what are the basics that you are watching to kind of have an idea of what's happening in the market? And how often are you looking at these numbers? Is this a
It's
weekly?
very simple. Very simple. This is a great tip for everybody that'll solve 80-90% of where the market's going. Study what the month-to-month inflation is. There is nothing that changes interest rates one way or the other more than that word. That word is the true boogeyman to rates. If they say inflation's going up like you're hearing it, rates go up because it's very basic. The investors demand more yield because their money's been eroded. Inflation goes down, rates go down too because they don't have to pay as much. It's just really that basic. It's as crazy as it sounds. And because you also don't have government intervention. If you had government intervention, I'd be like, dude, this is a crapshoot. Like, let's go to Vegas and throw some dice. It's going to be those odds. This has all to do with, and I mean, you can go in there and say that maybe China and Japan are selling some of the treasuries. That's affecting it. However, let's put it in perspective. They have 2 trillion out of like 38 trillion debt. A lot of the debt, believe it or not, is owned by America itself from a lot of this quantitative easing. So don't kid yourself on where a lot of the money's owed to anyway. So
What about the other thing I hear people tell me to watch is the 10-year yield. What is the 10-year yield, or is that just more like is the 10-year yield it's the same thing? It's downstream
it's
of
not a bad indicator, but it's not gospel. You see, that's one thing that always drives me crazy internally, and even with my broker partners or even friends of mine that are agents. It's like, oh, the 10-year went down. Why aren't rates better? They don't. If it's a trend that keeps going down, then the MBSs will get less.
okay. So
It's
the
not a
10-year yield
complete.
is our 10-year it's a 10-year treasury bond yields. And then the MBS is a mortgage-backed security. And what you're saying underlies all of this is keep in mind, these are all investment vehicles.
Yep.
Someone is buying these loans.
Yep.
Someone is like underwriting these, giant apartment buildings are parking, lots for insurance company equity. Like it's all right.
Mm-hmm.
There's a mechanism for all of this. So the most basic indicator, I love this, is when inflation goes up and I'm getting less return on my money because my dollar's being eroded, then rates are going to go up. That's just kind of the way the market's naturally going to work. And if I just follow that, those other indicators are downstream. And if you're only
Look, I would actually tell you it's okay to study the 10-year because I always want people to be very knowledgeable just so that even in conversations, when they're adding value, your job a lot of times, like I always tell people, what's great about this industry is people really do buy on emotion. Logic is what gets them to understand it, their emotions. Home buying is emotional. You already have a win right out of the door. Like they're already coming in with somewhat of a winning attitude for you and for them. You just have to use logic. So some of that knowledge, I think, is very powerful to just tell them, hey, here's what's going on in the current market. It seems, I would never use the language, rates are high. They're relative. Somebody in the 70s or 80s, to your point, would tell you that we're smoking crack, thinking, 6 something percent's bad. So
I remember being in the subprime industry, and when rates went below 6, everybody was flipping tables like this was the promised land. So that's, I think, a better indicator for me than who cares what the 70s and 80s. I'm talking in the early 2000s and
Yeah.
we're wearing shiny Regis, shirts and ties, and it's a Wolf of Wall Street call center. Getting it below 6 was like, are you kidding me? We're all going to be rich. This is free money. Like, for just for context, like, when rates are 2% and they're below the price of inflation, it really is free money. That is never.
Oh, no, I would never. It's a sad story, but I had a, God rest his soul, former business partner of mine pass away last year. And I was kind of advising the wife because she had no clue. She was a school teacher. She came into all this money. He was kind of a funny guy, lunatic. He had money in 17 bank accounts, kind of a conspiracy theorist. So trying to put it all together, it was funny. However, she's like, I'm paying the house off. I said, are you insane? It's 2.5%. I said, if you really don't like the payment, I get it. Have an idea. Park that money because she got quite a bit of substantial 7 figures. Park it in an account that gets you 4% and then just sweep the interest and pay it. I mean, I would not advise that. I would just say do it. However, I understand emotions. It's like when people used to ask me, should I do a 15-year or 30-year? I said, that's not really for me to answer. If you take out a 30-year, but you make the 15-year payment, you'll actually pay the house off. It's like 13 years. So you'll actually control your destiny. However, the question is, will you have that discipline? I can't answer that for you. Only you can. Many people are honest going, yeah, if I don't do the 15-year, we'll blow it. Okay. But my point is, I remove the emotion by saying, this is the value if you have the discipline. And then some people did and really did accelerate it and do all that. So like I say, as all of us being advisors in one way or another, it's all about adding value and bringing that knowledge to let them think what their logic and their value is, not you.
Eddie, you want to answer some questions?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, who's got questions? Let's open this thing up of who wants to ask a question. And we can go wide ranging because there is a lot of things in the loan industry. In some ways, it's more complicated than ever has been. In some ways, I feel like it's simpler. Cherie, I love this. Cherie is another LO. Cherie, what's your question?
Hey, I'm actually gonna, oh, my hair's looking awful. I'm gonna ask Rob's question, which was a great one. What can everyday real estate agents and LOs do to win today? Like, what are some of the things that you're suggesting?
Got to know the data first. So you need a foundation, is what I would tell you first. There's plenty of good data out there to study and really see where the pockets of opportunities exist and who they exist with. Second, I would tell everybody, and I know it's cliche and cheesy and stupid. I'm just going to say it, but it works. People got to know AI. I mean, nowadays, just to give you an example, I run a company survey that's massive every quarter. I now zip it into AI and it literally rips apart everything to do in 1 or 2 pages. I mean, it has saved loco amounts of time because time is the only real gift we have in this life. It's finite, it's not infinite. And I always tell people you can't beat time, but you can cheat time. And that's what I would say is just to stay out in front of the consumer. Obviously, I don't need to tell you that you should be on social. I will tell you, though, your social needs to have value, possibly even have hooks in it that really explain situations, even updating news. I'm a big fan of using Facebook almost like Twitter, just to give little messages out there. Because what I have learned is the communities are a lot more on Facebook than they are on Instagram and even LinkedIn, stuff like that. It's more, I would say that Facebook's an incredible weapon if used right. Believe it or not, I hate it, but TikTok too. I mean, I think TikTok's, drain brain, but that's where I'd tell you the advantages exist is really to refine your game and to understand that learning development is AI is a learning development tool. It's supposed to make your tech and yourself stronger. It's supposed to 3 to 10x you. It's not here to replace it. The people that use it just as a replacement, they're lazy and they're going to get beat too. Because now being authentic and around more people face to face is going to add you a lot more value than it used to.
Can I be a little controversial about AI? Because I've used it quite a
Sure.
bit. What I've discovered about AI is it is as lazy as you allow it to be.
Yeah, you got to
And
know how to talk to it. It's a unique
yes,
way. Yeah, you have to learn how to
yes.
talk to it.
Yeah, well, not only talk to it, but say, this is the information I'm looking for, or this is what I'm looking for. Like, um, it gives you a certain amount of information, and if you don't know like the next two or three things to ask it in order to really turn it into a true learning development tool, sometimes it does not do as well as going to a webinar or going to a class or something like that where the teacher, a human can engage you as well. That's just my little thing with AI.
Cherie, thank you for this commercial unprompted for why you should come to GridCon. Here is like, no, because here's, I think, is what the single biggest thing is.
Yeah.
There's 7 levels on the entrepreneurial journey. Level 1 is identity, right? Energy, identity, mindset. 2 is predictable income. Do I know the nuts and bolts, like you talked about it, Eddie? Do I know the data, right? In this case. 3 is business ownership. What are the KPIs that move my business? Do I have a P&L that I'm closing out? 4, now I've got some profit and I built a cash machine. I can invest this. 5 is leadership. AI, to use AI effectively, I have to have a leadership vision. How do I have any idea of what I'm
Correct.
outsourcing and what are the
Yeah.
essential capabilities of myself, right? How do I expand into like ancillary related businesses or use the opportunities I already have to get like a combo? And then what's the impact? Why am I doing all of this? AI is really easy, right? Eddie, when I've done this for 20 years, man, I love AI. I love AI. It's great for summarizing
I'm just getting a
information.
lot of time back. I can
But
even
I was a great books major. I read Plato and Aristotle and Aquinas and like, so like breaking down that info, I'm like, I can at a glance be like, yep, that makes sense. That's a crappy summary. I think it's missing something there. There's an intuition. So like, if I haven't get the reps in for some of this stuff, if I don't do the
yeah.
basics, AI can, it can give the illusion of competency to your point, Sheree. And so like having a framework, even if it's as simple as like getting on Lauren's, 4C, right? Like, so I have, okay, I'm using content, but like, I just need a basic framework to fit it into context of like, how does avatar and brand and content like work together in like a simple, understandable sort of way? If I don't have that, then AI can just be a fairly useless tool. And so if you don't have that, GridCon, we're going to go over all 7 of those levels. And we're going to
And
afterwards,
I
there's
hate
more.
to say it with AI, you can also ask it like, what question should I be thinking about? Like you could
Yes.
be I just tell people like anything, and this is hard for people. This is why people sell the lie that I don't like change. It's not that people don't like change. They don't want to admit they suck at something at first. Well, I'm gonna let everybody know you suck at something when you first do it. And you suck a lot and you suck for a while. And then one day you don't suck. All of a sudden you go from suck, suck, suck to holy shit. So that's what I just tell everybody, to be vulnerable, ask people for help. I mean, the amount of marketing material, that's the other thing. You should know it just because, oh, you guys want to market yourself. It is bananas what you can create in seconds on it. Bananas. And how beautiful to look too. Like, you don't even need crazy graphic designers. I've always said this now that I've seen it. The marketing field and coders that used to have massive incomes are really getting decimated by that. So yeah, I would tell you, just from a marketing standpoint, I mean, some of the stuff my team creates is just clinically bananas, and like a minute, 4 minutes.
I
So yeah,
I sat there and watched. We did an income flip webinar. We had people come in and Rob was showing them exactly how we built our acquisition business. And one of the guys in there was a security research for Meta. And he has an unlimited number of tokens. He used this thing called Manus. And in while he was sitting there, he built a prop stream website. He went to scrape all of the foreclosure notices, then went back and scraped all of the lawyer websites, turned it into a portfolio you could see that integrated Google Street View with a dashboard that you could view like in real time, pulled demo information. He did this in 8 hours sitting in that room. It looked like prop string. Like it's pretty ridiculous what you can do with the right tools. But if
yeah,
you're trying to do that on Claude, you don't know that Manus exists. Like you could be wasting your time with the right tools. So again, it's always levels to this thing. I think the shortcut is always people. And I think relational capital as we move forward is only going to skyrocket in value, actually. Like who's in your network is going to really determine your net worth as more and more of this stuff gets flatlined. Eddie, what should I have asked you that I haven't asked you today?
That's a great question. I don't know, man.
So, are you optimistic? I'm optimistic. I think
Yes. No,
I,
no, no, no,
I
no,
I
no.
think
Because I just
turbulence and a little bit, this isn't even much turbulence, frankly. We've just been going on a rocket ship. So now it's like getting back
well,
to normal.
it's what people don't realize, and the data's already out. And look, it can be adjusted. However, at least from my side, now home equity lines have skyrocketed. So obviously it's going to be less units for you guys. However, something like 5.5 million units a year to be financed is going to happen across the board for the next 4 or 5 years, they're predicting. Um, and on the purchase side, it's something like 92% of loans are now done with financing versus cash, which makes sense given what's going on out there. I think there's great opportunity. I just think, like I said, is people got to really get 1% better every day to really annihilate the competition. I hate to say it. This is market share is completely, I would throw my cup up as an example, but coffee may land somewhere in my house. I don't want to do that. The game's been changed and it's changing faster than ever. Competition can be defeated even if they're bigger than you now. It's market share is up for grabs. It's just like my father would say, God rest his soul. You got to go out and take what's rightfully yours. Nobody's going to give it to you. You literally have to take it from the other person. And I know that some people view that as a little harsh or ruthless, and it's not, dude. You got to take somebody's lunch money because if not, they're going to take yours. Like, don't think that they're saints out there.
You know what I love is Rob is one of the kindest. The reason I work with Rob and I do this stuff with Grid and with Kaza is I met Rob and he's like, my job now is just to make friends. But Rob was also like a conference champion wrestler. And if you ever met a wrestler, they are psychotic people. My father's a wrestler, my uncles are all wrestlers. Like you have to be psychotic, like a psychotic level of focus to want to do wrestling. It's just nothing but pain and suffering. And it is very much like uh, we are very competitive. We are super
You should
competitive
be.
here in Knoxville. We are competitive with how many people can we help? How kind can we be? Man, how much value can we add? I think I could add more value and help more people than anyone else. And like, it, I would say this, we are competitive about that. And I am here to take over by adding more value than other people. Because
As you
you
should.
channel the
It's,
competitiveness into a pro-social, positive, right?
yeah, as you should. I mean, it's no
Yeah.
different why I continuously keep refining our model to be better, faster, and cheaper. You got to do some tough decisions, and because that's going to be what a lot of people don't want to admit in my side of the equation is, yeah, there takes some skills. Yeah, that takes some people, of course, process and systems. We are kind of a commodity to a degree, and that's just the fact of the matter. It doesn't mean you can't add value. However, it's kind of like what I always say about the gas station analogy. Like, if it gets too high in price one place, even though I don't know how much money people really save by driving down the street, but they will. And you have to understand that emotionality about the industry once you're a
Yeah.
commodity.
I would say even, yeah, you're right. On the loan side, there's tranches of people, and sometimes it is a very boutique, bespoke, especially on the investment side. On the investment side, much less of a commodity. You're on the sophisticated portfolio side, where you really having a great loan advisor is pretty essential. But even on the home sale side of the basic, I'm looking for a 3-2, 1,300 square feet. It still is a bespoke trust, this is
Yeah,
scary. I'm making the biggest purchase of my life. I need someone to kind of walk me through, hold my hand. I don't know that it's ever really going to go away. Um, it's an interesting, it's
yeah.
interesting.
First time home buyer is
Yeah.
definitely that's where there's value too. First time home buyer in our market too. That's where they do. It's more about can you get me in the home and put me in a good position. Once you start going to second, third time home buyer or first time home buyer that who knows has 20% down for whatever reason, that's when the game is more commoditized.
And that's, I'd say, why we run community is again adding value of like, hey, great, you're moving to this area. What if I can plug you deeply into community, which doesn't exist
Absolutely.
out there. If I
Well,
can
that's
provide
sociological.
you.
It's very sociological.
Yep. Eddie, so the other thing I would just say is, looking at the market overall, any states you see that are booming, any state where you're like, oof, these places are getting hammered, and where are you seeing like tons of opportunity?
Hammered, what's funny you say that. I actually posted about it yesterday on Facebook. Hammered, you're seeing Texas, you're seeing Florida, you're seeing parts of California, Colorado. That one shocked me, but I know that their appreciation was crazy. Some
Mhm.
pockets in the South. You're not seeing that in Tennessee. at
So what
all.
kind of what
You're
goes
not,
up must go down in some places if it's speculative,
well,
and in
they
some places it's
exploded.
growth.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they've exploded for 10 or 15 years. So I don't know as much as down as kind of what you said is some people are having to give up some of the monopoly money.
Yeah.
Uh, from what I've seen on data, Oklahoma, because people that are in North Texas are just moving to Oklahoma, and all of a sudden a lot of things get cheaper. So you're seeing some of the areas that are around those hot pockets that are popping. Nevada's popping because I'm pretty sure they don't have a state tax, and a lot of people from California are
Yeah,
exiting over
no
there.
state
Yeah,
tax in Nevada, no state tax in Tennessee, no state tax in
Texas,
Texas,
Florida.
Florida. There's
Is
one
that the
other
four?
one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have a lot of people leaving California for either Idaho, Nevada seems to be the big one. I mean, what is it? Just last week or 2 weeks ago, the founder of Google, one of the founders, because there's two of them, he's leaving after that, whatever billionaire tax they're trying to put on there.
Yep.
He said, my parents evaded communism from Russia. I'm not going to deal with it here. So you're seeing Nevada, especially the other side of Lake Tahoe, have some serious booms and pockets because of that.
Sure.
Arizona's seeing some growth too, just because even though they have a state tax, they're next door.
Yeah. Yeah.
The next door effect is having a lot.
Okay.
You're seeing some New Mexico because it's not far from Texas on one side. Like you're seeing weird adjustments because of the neighboring states are benefiting from the areas that are hurting.
And then I guess I would say, from working, I imagine you work with a lot of real estate agents across the country. You've mentioned AI. What do you see people doing right now that are taking market share? Like what kind of tactics are they running that are resonating?
As crazy as it sounds, it's a lot of wash, rinse, and repeat. It's actually very mundane, boring process and systems from
Okay. So just
following up their CRM to consistently religiously posting on the networks to just what I've found is a lot of them have 5 things that they do and they just do them over and over every day and keep refining them and making them better. I mean, it's
so
success really is about
chop wood,
consistency.
carry water, builds. So what we talk about is, can I get to 10 contacts a day? Then can I get to 20 contacts a day? And can I get 500 people in my database and talk to them consistently? And add people to the database
And
consistently.
then just always be prospecting and adding that and finding new ways to get out in front. Yeah, it's just process and systems. But the thing is, that's not sexy, and people usually want sexy. So when I tell them, like, look, you want to get sexy with the process and systems, do all those things, and then maybe throw some fun stuff on social, not always about business. Maybe learn a little bit of AI. If you want to throw sexy in it, just throw a little bit of these features. However, wash, rinse, and repeat is going to be a lot more productive and successful.
And then if I'm going to leave here and go out with a message to the market, can you give me my 60-second soundbite so I can sound like I understand the mortgage market for the rest of 2026 of, hey, here's what we anticipate is going to happen.
So you'll love what I'm about to say for agents right now because it's true. Now is the best time to buy. Builders are sitting on a lot of inventory. Certain markets are coming down, and waiting for interest rates is going to cost you more than if all of a sudden you get seller credits that are always better than even lower prices, and you get the house for 20, 30,000 cheaper. Because once interest rates get a little bit cheaper, then all of a sudden those prices go back up, and now is a great time to buy, just because you're going to be getting a lot more, what I would say, discounted premium pricing.
So hey, the discounts that are available. So to hear this very clearly, right? Because we're in this limbo, the discounts that are available in the market are going to have a greater effect on your out-of-pocket cost, your total cost of ownership than interest rate. You've got leverage is more important than rate, because rate is the entire market. Yes.
I saw a guy explain it. A $400,000 loan today at 6.5%. It was something like, I forgot what he said, 20 something, 2,200, whatever it was. And then he says, let's wait. However, a 400,000 with 5.5, but now the price of houses, because statistics show, are 20, 30,000 more. So that 20 or 30,000 to save 100 something a month different in payment would take you too long to make up for it. So yes, negotiating seller credits, because you can get them right now. All that, a lower purchase price and more is going to be way better for the overall value that you drive somebody.
I love that. Eddy, I appreciate the time. I appreciate the conversation, right? I appreciate
Yeah, always.
the philosophy on this. It is the simple things but 10x, 10x, optimized, systematized. So it's the middle of the year. If you haven't sat down and you haven't gone through all of this, right? We're going to have some sessions in June where we can sit down, recap, recalibrate. Eddy, I appreciate your time. There will not be
Always.
Tactical Tuesday next week because we
Cool.
will be at GridCon. So I will see you in 2 weeks. Julianne, who's coming on in 2 weeks?
So yeah, we've got Mike Weber, and
Oh,
then
let's go. All right. So in 2 weeks, we've got something really easy for you to kick in if you want to get business immediately. Mike Weber runs a house hacking 101 play for these markets, right? How do I house hack for these investors you might be attracting? Mike's closed, I think, 13 or 15 deals just from running this webinar, seminar in a box. He's going to run through this. This is a great message I can go to the market with to capture that buyer, right? That's sweet. Maybe they're waiting because they think they're savvy of, hey, what if I could show you right now how to start building wealth through home ownership? Really great message. And what I love about that is you're adding a multi-transactional client to your sphere. The house hacking 101 client is someone that's going to buy, they're going to move up, they're going to buy an investment property like Eddy's doing for their college age students. So lean into that one. Mike Weber will be here in 2 weeks. Eddy, all your contact information is there. Connect with Eddy. He puts out great content. Look out for when is your book hitting, by the way?
We don't know yet.
Okay.
I'd say in the next 90 to 120. I'll let you know.
Okay. Later this
Cool.
quarter. Be excellent, brother.
All right. Take care, everybody. Thank you so much for your time.